Before we get into today's video, I wanted to give a quick self-promotion for my support creator code Flamm. Every 2 weeks, the support creator code is wiped, forcing you to re-enter, and since a new season of Fortnite is coming up in the next 2 weeks, I feel like right now is a good time to shout it out because purchasing the battle pass does help support me when you use my code. As always, if you aren't planning on spending V-Bucks, I would urge you not to do so just to support me because you being here is more than enough support already. But for a lot of people, the Battle Pass is the one thing that they buy every season, so if you'd like to support me or another creator coming up, make sure you enter a code in the item shop. Now, on to the video. The normal basic pistol has been in Fortnite since day one, and since that day it has remained nearly unchanged. Today, I wanted to break down the pistol by comparing it to other weapons in the game in order to determine why this weapon is so rarely used, and see if there are some changes we can make to fix it. The pistol comes in 4 rarities, white, green, blue, and purple, with the 2 highest rarities being silenced. The pistol features a fire rate of 6.75 bullets per second with a magazine size of 16 and one of the fastest reload speeds in the game at 1.3 seconds for the highest rarity. An interesting thing about the pistol is that it actually has the fastest draw speed of any weapon in Fortnite at 27 hundredths of a second. Most weapons hover around the 33 hundredths of a second mark. The problem is that not a lot of people are able to take advantage of this faster draw speed because the animation makes it seem like the weapon isn't ready when it actually is ready. This was a problem with the pump shotgun back in the day, making it feel way slower than it actually was because the animation wasn't on par with when the gun was actually ready. Now moving back to the in-game stats, in order to establish where the pistol fits into the game, let's compare these stats to that of the highest rarity assault rifle and highest rarity SMG. The 2 biggest things to notice here are the damage and fire rate differences. The SMG has the faster fire rate with less damage, whereas the SCAR has the slower fire rate with higher damage, with the silenced pistol fitting somewhere in between. These 2 factors really determine where a gun fits in the game, whether it's supposed to be an up-close weapon or whether it's supposed to be a long-range weapon. Right here we have the time to kill of the highest rarity pistol, normal AR, and 2 SMGs. Typically, the slower firing weapon is going to have the slower time to kill, but in this situation the normal AR is the anomaly. But where we see the advantages versus disadvantages of these weapons is when you start to miss some of your shots. Here's what the time to kill would look like if we missed 7 bullets with each of these weapons and still had to do 100 damage. As you can see, the normal AR suffers the most from missed bullets, followed by the silenced pistol, and then the SMGs suffer the least. When we combine this information with the damage drop-off of these weapons, as you can see here, it all balances extremely well. We have the faster firing weapons that aren't heavily punished for missing shots, have less range than the slower firing weapons, and in the middle, we have the silenced pistol, which has an even amount of both advantages and disadvantages when it comes to damage drop-off. If we stopped right here and everything I previously showed you in the video were the only factors in determining whether a weapon is good or not, the pistol would be in a fantastic spot. But unfortunately, we do still have to account for the bloom mechanic. Right here is the pistol's bullet by bullet accuracy when aiming down sights and strafing versus the SMGs. As you can see, the pistol starts out less accurate than the silenced SMG, and by the time it ends, it is still less accurate. Ideally, in this scenario, we would want the pistol to be more accurate at the start and then less accurate at the end since it is a medium range weapon with a medium fire rate. Then when we look at the accuracy of the pistol versus ARs, the pistol is again the less accurate weapon for the first 5 bullets and is then passed by the heavy and silenced AR. This makes sense, but one important thing to notice here is that the normal AR is more accurate than the silenced pistol the entire time. That is a major downside for the silenced pistol because why would you choose the pistol over the normal AR when the normal AR drops off damage later and is more accurate the entire time? What should theoretically be happening here is the silenced pistol should be the less accurate weapon at the start, which it already is, but then at the end of the magazine it should be the more consistently accurate weapon. The pistol having less than ideal accuracy is further exacerbated by the pistol being the fastest firing semi-automatic weapon in the game. Every weapon we've been comparing the pistol to today has the option to be fired in full auto, making aiming significantly easier because you simply hold down the trigger and focus on aiming your reticle. Whereas with the pistol, you have to fire each bullet individually by clicking on your mouse while also trying to aim as precisely as possible. Clicking a mouse nearly 7 times per second is no walk in the park, especially when you're trying to have pinpoint accuracy. Even the infantry rifle, which fires only 4 bullets per second, requires a large amount of skill to wield due to it being semi-automatic as well. For those of you on console, this problem becomes exponentially harder, especially if you use the default layout, which has your fire button on the giant bottom trigger. This makes it significantly harder to get a large number of clicks in due to the size of your button not allowing you to be precise in your clicks. So the solution to making the pistol viable seems pretty clear. Buff the accuracy. Even with a substantial increase in accuracy, I would personally like to see 15 to 20%, this weapon is still going to require a very large amount of skill in order to achieve its maximum potential. And for that very reason, we may never see this weapon buffed. A weapon that isn't relatively easy to wield is bad news for a game that is trying to bring in new players, which is why health and mats per kill hasn't returned. Game mechanics that reward skill are always objectively bad when your main priority is making money. That's why the bloom or accuracy mechanic has remained in Fortnite for so long. Initially, when it was added into the game, it was used as an easy fix for weapons, because back then the weapons didn't have damage drop-off. But when you add damage drop-off into the equation, it's really easy to effectively balance weapons without having to have this sporadic RNG accuracy. That's why I mentioned earlier in this video that the pistol would be in a very good spot if we didn't have the factor of accuracy. All the other weapons would be very balanced as well. Even though I bashed a lot on the pistol during this video, it's still not a terrible weapon. It's just not viable in the sense that it is able to compete with other top tier weapons towards the end of matches. Getting a pistol at the beginning of a match isn't the end of the world. The problems start to happen when people get more and more weapons and those weapons become better and better. And for some people, that's how they prefer the balance of weapons to be. Sometimes you have to have bad weapons in order to make it so the good weapons are more appealing. In my opinion, in a game such as Fortnite where there are such few weapons already, we don't really need to have that dynamic, but for some people again, that is what they would prefer. For me, I still think the potential for this weapon is extremely high, and I would love to see it changed in the future, but we will see what Epic decides to or not to do. Anyway, that is all that I have for this video. I hope that you found it informative. If you're new here and like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. Again, if you'd like to support me when spending V-Bucks or when purchasing games in the Epic Games Store, you can do so by using my code Flamm. Thank you to all of you who made it to this point in the video. I truly do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in my next video.